Hello, this is Colleen with Designs of Value Art, and this is going to be the intermediate full video of a project that I have promised you. It'll all be on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it from beginning to end. This is a lovely pear hanging off a branch, a couple different leaves. We're going to do a little bit of a different background. First thing I want to do is I'm going to kind of wake up my colors and spray them with my spray bottle just to kind of get them going here. There we go. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to decide on a background color. I don't want to go quite as dark as this color is. We're going to include the branch and, like I said, the leaves and the stem and that type of thing. But when I look at this pear and I compare it to my color wheel, it actually comes off as an orange, kind of in between these two colors. And the opposite of orange is blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a light blue background for this, and I will show you how to use masking fluid and all of that. But let's go ahead and mix our background color so when it's time we can go ahead and start painting. So what we're going to end up doing with these colored leaves is we're going to use our leaf colors that I absolutely love, and that for blue has French ultramarine more than the phthalo blue. So we're going to start with that. I'm just going to pick up some water here, and we're going to want, whoop, I got a dirty brush. We don't want that. So I'm going to pick this up so we can start fresh. Cleaning my brush. That looks much better. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and add in some clean water on the palette. And I've got a camera on my palette so you can watch me mix the colors that we're making. So we're going to start out with the French ultramarine. That's pretty nice. I like that. But what can we do to tone that down a little bit? So again, you can add in the opposite to tone it down. You can add in, I'm going to add some more out here anyway, as I talk you through this. You can add in some burnt sienna, golden ochre, all of those colors will tone it down as well, but keep the value, and we don't want to change the value. We do want it to be lighter, and that will do by adding water. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to add in some golden ochre. And that's going to be this color right here, and I'm making a mess out of it by adding some of that blue in there. And it's going to darken it pretty much, and I don't really want to go that way, but it did tone down that blue. So that is a pretty blue, isn't it? Like that. And we don't want it to be real bright and vibrant in the blue in the background because it's our background. But we're going to have this color in our leaves. So it's going to kind of tie back into our leaves, which is a good thing. Just adding more water. I'm going to add just a touch more of this. Tone it down just another shade. It's kind of graying it for us, which is perfect. So that was French ultramarine blue and just a touch of golden ochre and a lot of water. Okay, so we're going to start there, and I think that's going to turn out to be pretty good. I really do. Just cleaning my brush. There we go. And I'm going to clean the blue off of my golden ochre so it's nice and clean the next time I need it. All right, so where do we want to put our masking fluid? I've got 2 water drops here, and I'm just going to compare because I didn't include all the water drops, but I did do some. Yeah, so I've got these 2, and then I've got this one, and I've got these 2. So let's start with the drops, and then we'll come back in and look at the leaves, because there's actually a drop right here too between that leaf and the pear. And I guess there's 1 drop up here and 1 drop over here. So we can do those first with our masking fluid. Now I just put this design on here, and I think what I would like to do, and I'm using Fabriano 100% cotton, most important thing with any watercolor paper you're using. This is traditional white, which means they didn't change the white value at all as they made the paper. And this is Artistico, if I'll say it correctly, Fabriano. Great name. It's 140 pounds. It's on a block, so we don't have to stretch it. What I do when I'm using a block like this, and the design is going to be in the center of the paper, and because this is 10 by 14, but we'll actually do a 11 by 14 frame with this. I take my I can think the word now, mat, and put it down, and I mark where my mat falls on the inside there. So I know exactly when I'm adding my design where that mat's going to be, and make sure that my design's in the center of that mat. Now on this one, it's going to be on the very top up here, which is what we wanted. So let's go ahead, and I am going to use whole bean masking fluid today and pink soap so I can protect my brush. Now what I did with the jar before I started is it was kind of separating the blues. There was dark blue at the bottom, lighter blue up on top, so that means it was separating. I never shake my masking fluid because you're going to create bubbles, and you do not want, the problem is if you put masking fluid where you want it and there's bubbles in it, those bubbles will pop, and now the watercolor paper is showing through that masking fluid. So be careful with that. Don't shake it, just roll it until you get a pretty even color. And that's the way it's going to be. Now I am going to set this aside for a moment, since I don't want to stick my brush right into that. And I'm just looking for my tiny brush here that I can use. I'm going to stick it into I'm going to pour some of this into the cap, because I don't want to stick it all right into that. There we go. Set that aside. Since it's open, I don't want it to spill. Here's my brush that I was looking for. So I just have an inexpensive nylon brush, but I want to protect it because I like the size of it, and it works really well with a lot of the things you need to use your masking fluid for. So I just dunked it right into my pink soap. And pink soap is something you can pick up at Hobby Lobby, whatever. And what that pink soap is going to do is it's going to protect those bristles so that they don't get gummed up with the masking fluid. So now I'm just picking up some of the masking fluid, from the cap of the bottle, and I'm looking at my design to see where this one's going to be, and I'm starting in the upper left hand corner because this is going to be wet for a little bit too, and I don't want to get my hand in it, so I filled in that. Now there is a highlight right in here that I want to save. And that pretty much goes right up to here. This is the first time I've used this masking fluid, so it'll be interesting to see how it works. Okay, now this is pretty light, however, we'll be going around it to paint it in yellow, so we'll be okay there. Now we're gonna pick up the, I got a water drop up here, water drop down here, and then these two down here, so we'll start with those. We're just gonna fill them in at this point, just because we want to protect that from getting the background first of all, or even any of the yellow from the pear as well. And this is one down here. These don't have a real bright white, but like I said, now this one does. I just want to protect it. And then what we'll do before we do the background is go around and mask off the edge of each of the items so that when we do the background, we don't have to be concerned about getting the pear or the leaves. And this is pretty bright up here, so I'm going to protect this area as well. Now I'm leaving that graphite on there as best we can so that you can see it. I know I've had a lot of students say, oh, you take it so light I can't see it. So we'll leave it on there, and then when we're done with the first glaze, we'll take it off. All right, so this has got to be highlighted as well, or saved, I should say, for the highlight. Yeah, this pink soap works really well for this. This is a nice mask. I like this so far. It's not gooey or sticky, but it's just enough of a color that you can see it. Okay. Just a little bit more on this one. This is just a lightness, it's not really but all the way down the stem, it's pretty light. It starts right here. And I know a lot of people don't like to use masking fluid because, oh my gosh, it's too wide. Oh my gosh, I gotta fix it. Well, you know, that's part of painting, and that's what your Eradicators for. That's why God made Eradicators, I guess. And this comes all the way down. And again, when I go off camera, I'm just picking up some of that masking fluid right from the cap of the jar. And that's right about where that stops. Okay, now we're going to move on to these dots, water drops, and we'll be pretty good. There we go. Just double checking myself, making sure I've got all the areas that I want. And we're going to do this one too, that stem. It's pretty light. It's not white, but it's pretty light. And we'll start right up from up here and bring it down. We're going to be doing the outside areas next anyway. Okay. Now any masking fluid that you have will work just fine. If whatever you're used to, I would recommend this though. This works out pretty nice. Okay. So now while that's drying, which is a good thing, I'm going to go around the outside of the leaves. Actually, this is going to work well because this whole area up here is a highlight as well. So I'm just protecting the outside edge here, but there happens to be a highlight there too. So, yep, right up here too. Kind of went over that side, so I'll just take it off and reapply it where I really want it. Actually, we're just going to fill this whole stem in. It's so tiny, and we don't have to worry about it when we do the background. And as long as I'm here, I'm going to do because there will be some background on the inside of this stem. So we want to protect this stem all the way as best we can. Now my brush is starting to get a little bit cakey from putting so much on here with this masking fluid. So I'm going to finish the stem and then I'm going to just clean it real quick. It'll only take a second. And then we can start again. I think I picked up this little brush right at Hobby Lobby. Don't have much use these days for these nylon bristled brushes except for this. I was gifted a beautiful set of acrylic tubes from Cardinal. Actually, it's a Cardinal set, but a friend gave them to me and told me to paint with them, and I haven't painted in acrylics in quite some time, so I think I just might work up a couple designs, see what we can do. Now this is the stem, so we're just going to go around it so we don't get an awful lot on there. So there we go. And I went over over a little bit there, so I'll just clean that up as well. Cleans up real easily, which is really nice. Just don't want to lose these into the background. So we talked a little bit about color theory as to how to choose that background. And then as we go on with you seeing me do the background painting, that's another thing that I would consider to be an intermediate part of this project. And then those little dots on there, that's going to be fun. You get to see me do those. That I would say is part of an intermediate project. So I chose this because I've been doing so many flowers. Not quite sure everybody enjoys that many flowers, so wanted to try something different. I'm going to be doing an advanced class on YouTube as well, from beginning to end, and I've been kind of looking at still lifes for that with glasses and different things on that order. I'm going to cover this completely. Now you might say, oh my gosh, this is really putsy and I don't want to go through that, but you know, it's really well worth it to protect the areas that you want to save as light and not get the background into it and that type of thing. So this is well worth it. A lot of detail in painting, and that's what makes a lovely painting, is the detail. You'll see a lot of that at the end of the class. Finish our leaf over here. I don't think that corner is actually going to show because the mat's going to be on top of it, but that's good. Don't ever be afraid to have part of your design to go off the edge of where you're going to be painting, because it looks more realistic. Not everything is perfectly centered and all of that kind of thing. Now we don't have to do that edge because the background's not going to cover that edge. This is going to be a darker area, so definitely don't need to worry about that. Well, I have to say, I did not clean my brush yet, and this masking fluid's been working outstanding. Okay, let's see here. This needs to be covered. And you want to study your reference material enough so you know what areas you're going to be putting the background. So that's the area that you're going to need to cover the edges so you don't lose them. And when I do the backgrounds, what I'll do is this is kind of a small area up on top. So we'll do the top section, and then we'll do one side and then the other side. And if you break it down like that, it's a whole lot easier than trying to do the whole background at once. And what I like about doing it that way too is it doesn't look all the same. So it doesn't look like you cut out your pear and your leaves and put it on construction paper, I guess is probably the best way to describe that. And used to see that a lot when I was painting in oils. Did a real lovely apple or pear or something and had a nice dark black background. And we did a lot of acrylics with it first and then painted on the acrylics with the oils. And a lot of times it would look like it was just cut out and put on a black background. And it was very difficult. You had to really work at it to blend whatever you were painting into that background. Whether it be to have a trendle come out or whatever, to make that background blend in so it didn't look cut out and pasted. I didn't have to clean this little bugger at all. It's been great. And I didn't hardly use any of this masking fluid. So that's nice too. Try this paper though if you get the chance. This is cold press, and I absolutely love cold press. Hot press is just a little bit too slick for me. Like I said earlier with the oils, which is what I started painting in, was oils. We would paint our backgrounds with a roller brush and acrylics, and we'd roll it, and you'd want to get what they called an eggshell finish, which is what this basically is. Just that much texture is the word I'm looking for. And we want to do some up here. I missed this little guy. So I really like the cold press because of that. I got so used to painting on a textured area that this works out perfect for me. Hot press is just a little bit too slick for me. A lot of people absolutely love it, especially with flowers, and that's fine. Everybody's got their own preference. I just happen to like cold press. I tried rough. That was not anything I enjoyed. It was just, you can't get any detail like you would like to with flowers. Bring this all the way up like this. So yeah, that I wasn't happy with that at all. But that's how you got to figure it out if you like it, by doing it. Okay, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to dry this. And just making sure one of my papers here, so you can see I'm cleaning my brush by twisting it. Look at that. I don't see any blue on those bristles at all, which is what the masking fluid is. So it really cleaned up nice. So there we go. We got that done. And I'll be back as soon as I have this dry. Okay, I'm back and I've got everything dried as well as it's going to be. With masking fluid, you want to be careful. You don't want to dry it so hot that it adheres to the paper and you'll never get it off. So that's important. Now, what I did with the leftover masking fluid that I had poured into my cap, it was not contaminated, so I did put it back in. But what I also did, because I don't want it the cap to stick to the jar for the next time I use it and can't get it off, I cleaned out the cap with a paper towel just to make sure that I'm not going to have that cap real sticky. And there we go. So now that went on nice, and I don't believe it'll be off. Now, anytime I do a background, I always use water. And in my water, I have added blending and glazing medium. The reason I do that, and this is Winsor & Newton blending and glazing medium, is it allows me more open time with the paint on the paper. And what that means is I'm going to have more time to play with it before it dries. And that's important, especially with your background and you're not doing it all at one time, you're just going to be doing a section at a time. So I have my little jar here with water and blending and glazing medium in it. I've turned the cap over and I've just put my jar right inside that cap, holds it nice and sturdy. I'm using a silver brush, 3/4 black velvet oval. It's got that roundedness to it, which I like for doing backgrounds. And I'm just dunking it in. And I'm going to do this top area first. Now I do like to use a lot of water on my backgrounds. And I don't put a whole ton on all at one time. But what I do, since this is what I call virgin paper, it's never had water or paint on it, I put 2 coats on. I let the first coat soak in. And then I come back once it's hit the sheen, which means you look at the side of your paper and your water, it's not wet and moist and puddly, it's just got a sheen to it. So that's the time that you want to add your second coat of water. So you want to get this one on there nice. It's a good thing we did all the masking because that's really going to help quite a bit. And I'm just looking at the side of my paper to make sure I have all of my area covered. Now, I'm going to go down just a little bit further with the water than where I'm actually going to apply the paint, because I want the paint to soften into that moistness. And if I don't apply it, it won't be soft on those edges. Okay. I'm just making sure I haven't got any puddles. It doesn't look like I do. So we're going to just let that set up for a moment. Here we go. Just kind of going over everything, make sure it looks good. We got water right where we need it. And that's important. Like I say, you want to go further than where you're planning on stopping with the paint. I'm probably going to end up stopping right along there, but I got enough water that will bring it down. Now it's starting to go to the sheen, so we're going to give it just another moment. That soak into that 100% cotton. And that's another reason that you want that cotton, because it gives you that absorbability that's very even on your paper, which is a good thing. You don't want it to soak in up here and not soak in here, that type of thing. A little bit more water there. This brush is perfect. It's not too large that carries too much water. This is very controllable, which is nice. Make sure you don't have any puddles. Bring it down far enough. And with that masking fluid on there, I know I'm not going to get into an area that's going to be covered. Now, while that's blending in, I'm just gonna remix my paint, added a little bit of water to my brush because I know this has probably dried quite a bit. And you can see the separation. Got the bright colors up here, dark colors down there, and it's separated. So now we're just gonna blend it all back in. See how nice the ceramic palette works? You don't get any bubbles that don't look like they're blended or over blended. That's what happens with plastic. You can't quite tell what your color is. Okay, so I'm going to just set that aside. Mix up some more of my water. I'm going to load my brush up really well, both sides, with paint. Take it to my paper. Oh yeah, that's going to be a pretty color. See, we want it to set into the background, but we don't want it to be overbearing of a background. That's the idea here. I think the one on the reference photo is just a tad too dark. So I like this. Now if you have a hair in there or some dust or whatever, since I'm in my basement, that happens every now and again, just leave it in there till it dries. You're not going to take the chance to ruin your background by putting your hands in it, trying to get it out. So just let it dry, and then you can just run a clean hand over the top and it'll come right out. Another little trick of the trade there. And it does. It depends on where you paint. I happen to have a heating vent right over me here. And that can blow out hot air, and boy, that's something you got to be cautious with. I'm going right down between the stem and the leaf there. And if this would get onto your leaves, it's not a big deal. It's light enough that you'll be able to go over it. I'm just gonna take some of the water or paint out of my brush. Pick up that puddle. I don't want a puddle. And there's another one up here. So I'm watching the rest of it as it dries. It looks pretty good. Might have a little puddle right there, maybe not. Must be the masking fluid's pretty close to the same color, but not quite. It looks a little bit more teal green to me. There, we're gonna let that pretty well dry. However, I'm gonna mix up my color again with my brush, because it can separate just that quickly, the colors, and you don't want it to have blue over here and green over there and yellow over there, so you want to make sure that you keep mixing those colors. Now, I'm going to just use this same brush, pick up the water. I'm going to do the right hand side first, which I probably should have done the other side first, but that's okay. Go over further on the left than what I'm planning on putting the paint. Okay, there's one in there. Okay, got it out. Now the water, you want to take it right to the bottom. Your mat's going to cover that area up, but that's okay. Make sure I'm going right around my pear. Just kind of want to give it a misty background there. All right, now we're not doing this side yet. We're just doing this side I'm going to just continue right where I left off. Let those colors blend together. Keep picking up color and applying it where I have the water. I could have added another whole thing of water, but I had a lot of water on there. And again, I'm just going to go right up to that masking fluid. Make sure I'm getting that around that pear. Blend it in. If you get puddles, you can move them where you want them so they don't create puddles where you don't want them. Okay, I'm going to just pick up some more water and continue on. More water than paint, but I do have some of the paint in there, but that's okay. That one's actually an easier side to do than the other one was. Now you want to pretty much stay away from this as far as you can. I can see I do have some dust in there, but we'll leave it go and just mixing my paint as I go. Take it right up to the edge of that pear and leaf. Just looking to make sure you can see me, and it appears that you can, so that's a good thing. I'm going to take this right down to the edge, right over to where we stopped. There we go. Now it looks like the top is dried pretty well. There's drying pretty well. Let's go back here and make sure we get right up to that edge, right up to that edge, and right up to this edge here. Get some color in there. Doesn't want to seem to stay close to the masking fluid. So we're just going to go back over it. Now you don't want to do this a lot, but this paper is really wet, so I should be good. And it looks like I am. So I'm going to dry this and I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm back. Got everything nice and dry, or as dry as it's going to be today for sure. And it's time to take off our masking fluid, except for our water drops. We're going to leave those on. I'm just looking at my reference material here. Yeah, there's that one in the center. Background's going to turn out real pretty. It's just a nice soft blue, and that's exactly what I wanted. And I'm just using a little cement square. They call it cement. But look at how nice this comes up. Oh, I love it. I can just pull that up. Oh, took that water drop, but that's okay. Look at this. It's just going right around. I love it. Now I'm going to leave that one down the center if I can. If it doesn't take it by me pulling it up like this. Boy, is that ever nice. That's probably the easiest I've ever. Well, we're going to leave that one. Well, it's coming up, so we might as well just take it. Okay. Throw that stuff away. Since it likes to come up like that, let's just continue to do it. There we go. Not too shabby. Now, right here, I would like to add in a little bit of blue there, which is not a big deal. Still got some on my, I cleaned off my palette, but I do still have some on my brush. Add just a little bit more color to it. Not a ton. All right, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up my number 4, get it wet, wipe off the majority of the moisture, roll it in my color. You can see me doing that. And then I did take some off the tip of my brush as well. So I didn't want a lot of moisture on here. But I want to kind of go around the edge of this pear a little bit. And we're going to treat this just like it's wet on dry, which is exactly what it is. Once it starts to dry in that hard line, I'll add some moisture on the outside. See, it's masking fluid must have been there. That's okay, we can enlarge our pear if we have to. Okay, so I cleaned my brush, I wiped off the majority, so I don't want this to go back into the background, nor do I want it to dry in a harsh line. I want it to just be soft. So I'm just softening away that edge. Yeah, see, that color didn't even get picked up there, so we'll enlarge our pear if we have to. All right. Well, I'm happy with the background. Turned out a pretty color. Masking fluid came off very easily. Sometimes you can spend an enormous amount of time on those to get them to come off the right way. Okay, so let's talk about the leaves. And it's my go-to color that I create with French ultramarine, 2 parts, Senla yellow, 2 parts, phthalo blue, 1 part, and then lemon yellow, 2 parts. So this is my extra that I always save, and it's pretty stiff. So I'm going to add some water to it, and I just got it all over me. All over my glove too. Oh well, it's part of painting, I guess. There we go, came right off. Perfect. All right, so let's add some water with our mixing brush here. Guess it's not as dry as I thought it was. So I'm going to take some of that, bring it over here, add a little bit of water to it because it's pretty stiff over here. But that's going to be our background color. Now, to create some of these highlights in these leaves, like up here's got a lot of highlight on that side, we're going to do some of that same color. I'm just going to pull some over here. I'm going to start with French ultramarine blue. Clean my brush here a little bit. But anytime you want a white or lighter highlight on a leaf, you always want to add blue. Gives you that see-through. See how that's creating that lighter blue color that we're looking for over there? Yep, those two colors are going to be great. And then we'll do some mixes in between, because you've got a lot of light over here and some light over here, but then it gets darker like that. So it's always nice to have a little jar of that green handy. That you're not mixing all those colors every single time you go to paint leaves. There we go. So I'm going to clean my brush again. So we're going to start with that leaf up here. So at this point, if you do have any fuzzies or hairs or anything in your background, now would be the time to take them out with a clean, dry hand, and you should be able to take those right out. I'm going to move that over just a little bit so you can see me. Now I'm going to go up to a number. That's a 4. That's a 4. Do I have a 6 out here? That's my water brush, which I'm going to need next. But I need a number 6. Now I use Billy Shoal brushes. That's the green brushes you'll see me use. I also use, they're a little bit easier to find, boy, all I have is 4s here. What's going on? It's got to be oh, it's a 6. Okay, good. I also use the long round Princetons. They're easier to find. The Billy Shoal, you have to order them from overseas. More difficult to get. Okay, so I've got my number 6 out here. Now I've got my water brush. We're going to go back to our clean water with the blending and glazing medium, and I'm going to do 1/2 of this leaf at a time here. So I'm going to do this outside edge first, and I'm starting in the upper left hand side because I'm right-handed, and this way I do not get my hands in it as I go to paint. Now with this brush, I try to never, as soon as I say that, I'll put my brush right into paint, but I try to keep this brush completely away from the paint so it just stays nice and clean and clear. Now I'm going to the outside of that leaf just to clean up that edge to the outside there. So I've got my first set of water in. I'm double checking to make sure I don't have any puddles as I look at the side of my paper. I don't really see any. And I'm jumping over this stem here. And we're going to be putting in the blue. So I got my brush wet. And you can see me grab my paint and I'm rolling it to a point. That's why I like these nice long bristles, nice and pointed. See how that's just almost the perfect color for this side of the leaf. And I'm going right up to that outside edge. And if I need to go over into the background to smooth it out, that's what I'll do. Now this is our first layer of paint on this leaf. Make sure I got right up to the edge and right up to the edge on the inside. And then there is, right on the outside of this little stem here, some green too. So we'll get it in there. Here we go. Now, there is some dark in there as well. So I'm going to just pick up a little bit of that dark while this is still moist. I am going to turn my paper here. It's going to go on top of my palette, so you'll get to see it in both areas. You always want to turn your reference material the same way you are. And I just want to get a little bit of this in here where it is the darker. Believe it or not, I need just a little bit more water. Bringing my brush to a point. It did go right over that water drop, so we'll get that out of there as well. We just want to get these little indications of veins. There we go. Now, since that's nice and dry, wet still, just cleaning out my brush, wiping the majority of it off, the water, and we're going to go back in. My brush has to be drier than the paper to pick this color up. It's doing a nice job. And we're just recreating that water droplet. And I'm wiping in between each time I pick up a color, because otherwise, unfortunately, what happens if you don't, you're just reapplying color right back down to where you just took it off.